there was a fight between Nigel Robertha and Taxi Fountas, and they got suspended after a training ground altercation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Fountas was accused of using a racial slur against Robertha, and Robertha assaulted him. Now, this one pisses me off too, Heath, because there was an investigation about Fountas last year with an Inter Miami player, and Iami Mbika, and he got accused, right? There was an investigation here.
Mm-hmm.
MLS launched an investigation and said it found the allegation to be credible, but they could not independently verify it. So Fountas denied the accusation, but did not play in United's final 2 games of the season. And then it just kind of like off-season hit, and it just was simmering under the surface. And now he has this. Listen, Taxi Fountas needs to get out of this league and out of DC United as soon as possible. One time when it was, I mean, he should have been gone after the first one. It was credible, but not. I mean, the player clearly reacted. Mbika clearly reacted in a way that guy said something, and they let it slide. They gave him a chance, and now he's doing the same thing to a teammate. I mean, there's a lot to unpack here, Heath, and I am getting kind of talky here, but I'm pissed because this guy needs to get out of the league. He's not a representative of MLS, and he should get out of DC as soon as possible and send him back wherever he's from, to his racist town. Or I don't know.
I agree.
I just like, this is insane.
No nonsense. It's one thing to sit, like, individually verify, because there is a lot of ramifications with that.
I get that. I understand, but
now that there's something else,
dude.
Like we're going down this route again, and you know, it leads me to think of, like, if it took another 6 months to realize what happened late last year, what's happened in the meantime, you know, and what type of behavior is being supported in the meantime, or swept under the rug, or ignored, or whatever. And it's not even about, like, just getting him out of the league. It needs to be much more significant than that, because it's horrible, man. It's absolutely horrible.
You know, what's interesting is, for as much as we make fun of the Galaxy and how much of a dumpster fire they are at times with some of their decision making and the team they're trying to build and their lack of success, despite being the most successful club in MLS history, I really appreciated what they did with Alexander Katai. You know, his wife makes a racial slur. They did a little bit of negation. Guy's gone. They just ship him out. Taxi Fountas, for me, should have done the same thing. And this isn't DC United's only other problem. There was a photo of their head trainer during the All-Star game, and he was making a sign with his hand during the photo that represents white supremacy. And I'm like, what's going on in DC United, by the way? So yeah, this is some heavy stuff. What's interesting is, and what I find interesting is that Taxi Fountas, let's use him as an example, Alexander Katai. These are guys that have traveled the world and played this game. And I think when you start to travel, at least from my experience, Heath, you start to be more empathetic to the world around you. And you understand that what's awesome about this game in particular is that it brings people together, and that you can be any shape or size. You can have any cultural beliefs. You can have any shade of skin color. But all of that is so secondary to, hey, can you play? Because if you're good, I want you on my team. Like, that's what's so awesome. It's so unifying that we can leave all this superficial crap that doesn't really matter. We can look at each other as proper human beings, and through sport, and through this particular sport, we can find common ground. And that common ground usually makes all the superficial stuff go away. Like, it doesn't matter what you look like. It's like, you find out who people are when they play. Do they work hard? Are they willing to fight for you? Are they willing to, and you the same? Like, these are the qualities that I think should be valued in a human being. Instead, we look at stuff that ultimately doesn't, and then we start to judge each other based on that, and it's ridiculous. And so
yeah, no, I think
anyway, it's so frustrating that in 2023,
look, I think, Jimmy, just from a contextual standpoint, globally, right, the history of the game was founded on socioeconomic, social circles that existed, some of those rooted in fascism, racism, and, you know, all of the bad isms that exist in the world, right? And the idea of the sport being this thing that brought people together was exactly that, right? One, it gave people the opportunity to travel and see different perspectives. And then on the field, Major League Soccer being the most diverse league in the world, an opportunity, I can't remember what the amount of countries that it represents, but an opportunity to represent the country you're from, the name on the back of your shirt as a whole, but more than anything, immerse yourself and learn and grow and be an example elsewhere. Because I have this argument with people a lot of soccer being the most progressive sport, but a lot of people will argue in other parts of the world it's not. Right. It's not the progressive sport.
Well, there's a lot of tribalism, of course.
A lot of tribalism, and there's a lot of nationalism that exists in other parts of the world. But the goal collectively is to sort of share and whatever. And that doesn't excuse like somebody come in and being like, well, this is where I come from and what we think. Like I think there's enough information out there that people are thinking for themselves. We're not talking about an era where you're only receiving bits of information that are controlled by, a specific population or a specific message. And so I think it's just wildly unacceptable. It's horrible. It's disgusting. The idea that it's like a repeat thing, you're kind of just like, or allegedly a repeat thing. You're like, this is insane. It's just insane.
I'm so disappointed in so many different ways. And I know I've had a chance. I played in Eastern Europe in particular, in Poland for Lech Poznan. And there was some obvious racism going on. We didn't see a lot of black players in particular in that league. And so you would hear monkey chants, you would hear, I should say this, and I think I've told this story before. Salt Lake City, MLS, I had a teammate that had a banana thrown at him when he was warming up. And I was captain, and I didn't find out about it until afterwards. And I have a lot of regret around it because I didn't fully, after a game, this is my validation, I guess, to make me feel okay. But after a game, you're so kind of caught up in the result. So I think we drew, or I think I made a mistake and we gave up a goal. I think Jason Christ scored or something. And
that sounds right.
And I was kind of in my feelings at that point, and pissed off because we didn't get a result. And I think maybe we did well enough to do it and whatever. And I then caught wind afterwards that one of my teammates had this banana thrown at him, and I was hot, but I felt like I'd said everything to him in the right way at that time. And I wish he would have said something before, but now I didn't take that extra step, Heath, to ask him how he's feeling as a human being. Like and not that I made it about me. Everybody was upset in the locker room when they found out, but I remember going to our coach and saying, hey, what are we going to do about it? Are we going to say something to Salt Lake? And I didn't follow through on that. And I wish I had gone to the press and said, hey, this happened and this is unacceptable. And I didn't follow up with my teammate later to say, hey, how are you doing as a human? That's something I think I would never forget. If somebody did that to me, I don't think I would have forgot that. Like, you look back at your playing career, and that's a moment you'll always remember. And it's just to demean you and dismiss you and make you feel less than. And it's so, God, it's so frustrating. And so I use Poland as an example of seeing some open racism, but it was happening maybe a little bit more quietly, even though that feels like you're throwing something at somebody, that makes it pretty obvious where you stand. There's some questions here from one of our loyal listeners, and we appreciate these, at DHA Troits on the Twitter. And he says, can the people who created this MLS investigation policy be highlighted and put on the spot, interview or not? And I like this question because right now, when DC United makes a statement, when MLS makes a statement, when any of these organizations make a statement, it's all faceless. It would be quite awesome, in my humble opinion, to see somebody come out and be outside of Don Garber, maybe if it's a representative of DC United, really step up. Wayne Rooney. I know that there are talking points. Kind of get away from the talking points. Show it with some action. What does that mean? What are you going to do to follow through? And that's where I wish I would have been a little bit better, because his other question is, can Heath and me talk about fighting racism as white people? And the follow through, I think, is super important, because we do a lot of positive lip service, but what's happening either in front of, quote unquote, in front of the camera, or what's happening off camera when it really matters in these little things, and making sure that everybody feels human in this moment and are supported in a meaningful way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it can't just be lip service. It can't just be like, the way that you're raised to like turn the other cheek and those types of things. It does require a stand. It does require a face to it. It does require humanizing. It does require working through it. I actually thought, the league has done some good attempts instead of ostracizing and casting away people who make mistakes of an attempt to humanize and rehabilitate. And hearing some of those things from Major League Soccer this year and some of the decisions they've made as they've tried to improve, I think have actually been extremely helpful in humanizing processes, right? In the world that we're in, it's a very difficult place that we're in with the way that information gets shared. So, but yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
I don't know if there's a question to be answered there. I'm just frustrated. And you're right. I have seen some progress from an MLS perspective. I think the Black Players for Change, what Jeremy Audacy is doing, even though he got subjected or was close in an area from Dante Van Zier from the Red Bulls, it just feels like this isn't going away anytime soon. And maybe the progress is going to be a lot slower than I would hope, given all the things that I've mentioned in terms of just
Jimmy,
being around the game.
Like, by the way, like when I go back to the athletic trainer and the hand that he made, very clear, very obvious. You just go, well, what is that person saying to people in a training room every day? What 17 and 18-year-old kid is he spending time with that he is either spewing stuff or hiding, which I would doubt he is if he has the opportunity like that to do something, and he did. Like he's spending his time amongst young people, young professionals with an opportunity to be, a privilege in a position of power, to abuse that. It makes me wonder, like, did this just come up for the very first time and he decided this is my chance? Or has there been a history of behavior that people didn't know how to, either for their rights or whatever, they're believing that something like that could pop up and be like, man, that came out of nowhere. It's hard for me to believe.